Chairman, we're now live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to those of you in the room and those of you attending by viewing our YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Adam Bennett, and I am the Vice Chairman of this committee, and this evening the Chairman of this meeting. Details of the business to be considered today is shown on the agenda, copies of which are available online under the live broadcast. We are not expecting a fire alarm or drill, so if the alarm goes off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For those of you in the room, please can I ask you to switch all mobile devices to silent or off before the meeting starts, but please do note that councillors and officers in the meeting may use their laptops or tablets during the meeting to view the agenda paperwork. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd just like to introduce who everybody here is. I'll start with the councillors. To my right, we have Councillor Roy Chamdow, Councillor Darren Davis, and Councillor Philip Cawthorne. And to my left, we have Councillor Tony Gill and Councillor Elizabeth Gerlich. And the officers present, again, I will start to my right. We have Strategic Planning and PPA Lead Officer Ed Lawton. We have Strategic and Major Applications Manager Mandip Malhotra. We have Principal Planning Officer Michael Brigginshaw, Principal Planning Officer Chris Brady, Transport Planning and Development Manager Dr. Alan Tilley, and then to my left we have our Legal Advisor Sihar Arshad and Democratic Services Officer Liz Penny. We now start on the agenda. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. Liz?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Steve Tuckwell, with Councillor Darren Davies substituting, and also from Councillor Jazz Dott. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Councillor Davis, for substituting. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest in matters before this meeting. Does anybody have any declarations to make? Thank you. That's none recorded, Liz. Agenda item 3 is to receive and approve the minutes of the previous meeting dated 22nd of June 2023. Agreed? Thank you. That's agreed, Liz. Agenda item 4 is matters notified in advance or urgent. I'm not aware of any. No?
No, there are none, Chairman.
Thank you, Liz. And agenda item 5 is just to confirm that there are no private reports this evening. Everything is part 1 and public. So we move on to the main part of the meeting now. We start with agenda item 6, which is Northwood College, Maxwell Road in Northwood. And I think, Michael, you're going to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chairman. So, it's not on? It's meant to be, yeah. Yep, cool. So item number 6. So item 6 relates to Northwood College Educational Foundation. This site occupies a large plot of land located on the northwest side of Maxwell Road. The facilities are used by the lower and upper school and sixth form, and includes a sports hall, swimming pool, playing fields, and multi-use games area. The main access to the school is from Maxwell Road, and there are 43 on-plot car parking spaces. The multi-use games area in the western section of the site forms the focus of this application. Joins the residential properties located on Myrtleside Close to the west and the Glen to the north. So this is the constraints plan. Despite being close to the Northwood town centre boundary, the site falls within a residential area. The site is bounded by residential properties to the south and west, and beyond the garages to the top of the plan there you can see are more residential properties. There are also residential properties on the southeast side of Maxwell Road as well. So the school site falls within the Green Lane Conservation Area, and the buildings at the front of the site, including the old school, sixth form and library, Ray Lodge and Vincent House, are locally listed. Designated greenbelt land and a nature conservation site is located approximately 130 metres to the southwest, shown in green there. Not shown on plan, but just for information, context, the Northwood West Air Quality Focus Area is designated approximately 60 metres to the southwest along Rickmansworth Road, and the Northwood East Air Quality Focus Area is also designated approximately 700 metres to the west. So here is a bird's eye view of the site, dated 2019, showing the playing pitches to the top of the image. For context, these are some views of the school as viewed from Maxwell Road, including car parking to the front. You can see there. Here are some views of the school site from Myrtleside Close, which again sits to the west of the playing pitches. And this is the vehicular access to the site from Myrtleside Close. And then here are the playing pitches, which are the subject of the current planning application being considered at this committee. So the original planning permission for the all-weather playing pitches sits under the 2007 planning application referenced on screen. This permitted the construction of a new early years centre alongside the relocation of the pitches, which were originally approved under a 2003 planning permission. So the 2007 permission approved this landscape plan, and as such, the use of this area of the site for sports has been established, but was limited in operation by planning conditions. Planning permission is now sought for the amendment of those conditions attached to the 2007 permission, and this includes condition 12, which relates to hours of use, and condition 13, which restricts who can use the pitches. Condition 12, which is shown to the left of the screen, was secured and restricted the use of the playing pitches to between the hours of 9 AM and 6 PM Monday to Saturday, at no time on Sundays and bank holidays. Now, the reason for the condition was to safeguard amenity of neighbouring residents. The current application proposes to amend this restriction. Condition 8, shown to the right of the screen, is proposed to extend the hours of use to between 9 AM and 9 PM Monday to Friday, 9 AM and 6 PM on Saturdays, 10 AM and 4 PM on Sundays, and again no use or at no time on bank holidays. So condition 13 of the previously approved permission is shown to the left of the screen, and also secured and restricted the use of the playing pitches to the exclusive use of the school, stating that it could not be hired out to external organisations due to the impact on the local highway network. The current application proposes to remove this restriction. Condition 9 is the proposed replacement condition, shown to the right of the screen. It is proposed to allow use by the wider community, but on a managed basis. So moving on to the assessment of the scheme, officers note that the principle of using the playing pitches in this location has been established by the approval of the 2007 Planning Commission, and the only difference being that the pitches would be used for extended hours and by members of the community as well as the school. Community use of such facilities would provide a public benefit and is supported by regional and local planning policies. Officers are also aware that the Council has allowed for hours of use beyond 9 PM in Northwood residential areas, including the nearby Northwood School on Potter Street, which allows for use until 10 PM on weekdays and 7 PM on weekends. In terms of noise impact, comments from residents regarding noise impacts have been considered in detail. The Council's noise specialist has been consulted and advised that the extended hours of activity would have a low noise nuisance risk. Officers consider it to be necessary and reasonable to secure condition 15, which requires that a noise mitigation and management plan is submitted and complied with for as long as the development remains in existence. This should set out how organisers of the sports at the school would operate in order to best reduce noise impacts during the evening hours. Subject to condition 15, the proposed extended hours of use would be sufficiently controlled such that a detrimental impact in neighbouring resident amenities should not arise. It is not considered that a reason for refusal based on noise impacts would be robust or defendable in an appeal scenario. Touching on lighting impact briefly, officers should emphasise that the planning application presented to committee tonight does not propose flood lighting. The impact of such a form of development cannot therefore form part of the consideration of this application. So on highway safety impact, comments from residents in respect of highway safety have been considered in full, including comments in respect of cumulative impacts of activities. A transport statement addendum document has been submitted as part of the application process and accounts for all activities that would take place on site. The Highway Authority have been consulted and conclude that the proposal, alongside all other uses, can be facilitated by the car parking provisions on site in combination with the sustainable travel provisions to be secured, which includes a travel plan to be secured by a legal agreement and a parking management plan to be secured by condition 14. Subject to such planning obligations and conditions, it is considered unlikely that the proposal would result in significant displacement onto the local highway network. It is emphasised that development should only be refused on highways grounds if there is an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impact on the road network is deemed to be severe. A reason for refusal based on highway safety impacts is not considered to be robust or defendable in an appeal scenario. Now, on air quality, this was something raised by residents, and as previously noted, the Northwood West air quality focus area is located a short distance to the west, and the Northwood East focus area is located is further away to the east. These are areas that have existing poor air quality conditions, have high human exposure, and the current plan measures are insufficient to resolve the poor air quality issues. The Council's Air Quality Officer has been consulted and advises that the proposal is not air quality neutral or positive, but to mitigate that, a financial contribution equal to approximately £12,000 is to be secured by a Section 106 legal agreement. And subject to this planning obligation, the proposal would accord with relevant planning policy. To conclude, for the reasons set out within the committee report and subject to securing the necessary planning conditions and legal agreement, the proposal is considered to accord with the development plan and is recommended for approval. I'll pass back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Michael. So we do have a couple of speakers this evening on this one. First will be the petitioner. Do we have a Miss Mackenzie here? Yes, please do come over. So just take a seat on this table here. No, that's what is it you need?
What I forgot, I have in my drawer was my grandfather. A very loud whistle.
Okay. Well, before you start, just to let you know that you'll have 5 minutes. When you're ready to start, you just press the button on the base of the microphone. The light will come up red, and that means people on YouTube can hear you. The traffic light's just in front of you here. For the first 4 minutes, it will show green. When you've only got 1 minute remaining, it will go amber. And if you're still talking when it goes red, I will politely bring you to a close. Over to you.
Okay. Is that working? Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I don't know if you can see here, I'm speaking on behalf of 52 flats in the Glen. In those flats are elderly people, very young, beautiful babies, and teenagers, and their families with them. It is a wonderful mixture. The reason I say that is because this is how close, this yellow area I've marked in here, and you didn't have a picture of the Glen I saw. We are very, very close. I was speaking to 2 of the residents this morning as I'm here on behalf of all of them. They all know that I'm here, and they have teenagers, and they said the noise down there already, even when they just have a party, is excruciating. And I have been gardening down there because we have this beautiful stream, which I noticed is never mentioned. This is a very important conservation area we live in. And the stream carrying water from the River Pin also has to be looked after. It is always overlooked, both by Hillingdon Council and people who want to build round there. The Glen looks after it. The school pays us for organising that. I just want you to know this. It's important. This is a conservation area. And became one in 2007. May I start by asking you, we understand the lighting is not going to happen. Is that correct? The tall lighting is not going to happen. I'm asking the question.
So that is not part of the application that's here for consideration this evening.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we may be talking about, for the Glen, light pollution, noise pollution, air pollution. Our wildlife has halved in 10 years. No bees in 5 years, no frogs, no hedgehogs, very few birds. This is a conservation area. Those creatures have got to put up with more noise and activity, new services, etc. The police station change of use was refused due to increased traffic, air pollution and noise. Therefore, on behalf of everyone at the Glen, we really question any extra, quote unquote, overspill of traffic will be negligible. It will be plenty of traffic. Much of it will park in the Glen, as they do now, where we live, and all over this area of Northwood, with all the attendant noise. Doors closing, children shouting, "Oi, come here, have you finished?" All of that. Any overspill of traffic will be negligible, is what you say, but we really doubt this, because we've seen it and experienced it all the time, people parking in the Glen. Air quality contribution. They will pay the council, as you have just said, £12,222. Will someone here please tell me what that money goes towards? It doesn't cure pollution, that's for sure. I would have thought that I'm sorry, guys, I would have thought every hand would have gone up and said, trees. Plenty of trees, immediately, mature trees, planted by the Hillingdon or paid for by the school, mature trees to absorb CO2 and give back oxygen. There's no other option. Question from the Glen residents of all ages about the stream and the college pays. We pay for that. I think I've told you that already. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there are huge, huge benefits. This is full of what the benefits are. The benefits of the noise, the benefits of the pollution. You don't mitigate noise when men are running around after a ball saying, "Hey, get the goal, come on!" And then the man who watches it all goes, whoosh, blows his whistle. I've been there. I've heard it. We all hear it. We have babies sleeping. We have people with cancer, just like every other neighbourhood. This has to be thought through more carefully. We all love children. We want children to play games. Wonderful idea. But this is too big a project.
Thank you very much, Ms Mackenzie. I'm just going to bring you to a close there. Your 5 minutes is up, and thank you
My whole
very
time?
much. Yes. However, please do remain seated. Before you return, I open it up to the councillors around the table now if they would like to ask you any questions.
Please, I have to ask one thing. On behalf of everybody, we do not want it on Sunday. You have that as history. We want 1 day of peace.
Okay. That will be for the committee to discuss and debate shortly.
Thank you.
But first, remain seated there. So I have Councillor Shamdell, then Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chairman.
Shamdell.
Mr. McKenzie, thank you very much. I want to know a little bit more about, you mentioned something about the parking. There's this issues with parking at the moment. Now, is this during the school time or?
Any time.
Yeah. So, in terms of your roads, are they sort of normal width or can they just?
Normal width, the main roads belong to Hillingdon, down in the middle of the glen. And then there is that, it ends there, it ends at the stream. It's a cul-de-sac, off Green Lane.
So if I ask another question, Jim? Yeah. In terms of, you also mentioned the noise that emanates from these playing fields at the moment. Have you made any representation to the council or your councillors regarding this, or the school?
No, because this came up quite a few months ago, so we haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdale. Councillor Cawthorne?
Okay, sorry, may I just say we sent the petition, which is why I'm here. So we did respond.
Thank you. Yes, I've got a couple of questions. Sorry, Mrs. McKenzie, isn't it? Yes. The first is in relation to engagement with the applicant, who I understand to be Northwood College. If I'm reading the papers correctly, has there been any engagement with the college, with residents in relation to this application, or indeed is there any kind of dialogue in more general terms on a regular basis? Does that take place?
We have had very good relations with the school and the bursar, mostly because we share the stream. Our board, the middle of the stream, is shared with the school and us. That's our borderline. And we look after part of theirs, and they pay us for engaging the gardeners to do that. We have discussed all manner of things over the last 10 years.
Okay. Supplementary, if I may. You said you're the petitioner, so I assume you're responsible for one of the points raised here, which relates to supervision, or the need for supervision, or the absence thereof.
Yes.
Am I right in saying that is not a feature currently of the working arrangement? Would that be fair to say or not, in your experience?
It's not part of the working arrangement at the moment. It came out of, if they're going to do this, it requires supervision, and it comes up in some of the text here. What all of the residents ask, is there going to be supervision?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Any further questions from councillors? No? Thank you very much. Ms McKenzie,
Thank you.
Return. Thank you. If you just turn the microphone off just before you do. Thank you. So next to speak, we have the applicant, I believe the deputy head teacher of the school. So we have Miss Goff, Mr. Andrews. Yes. Please come and take a seat. Thank you. So as before, whenever you're ready to speak, just press the button on the base of the microphone. You'll have 5 minutes. We have the red, amber, green for the first 4, then amber, and then I will bring you to a close if the light goes red. And whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of Northwood College for Girls' application to extend the hours of usage and access to the local community for our all-weather sports pitch. My name is Don Andrews, and I'm the Director of Finance and Operations, or in old money, the old school bursar. Northwood College is an independent school with nearly 900 pupils from nursery to year 13. It's been part of the Northwood neighbourhood for over 130 years on Maxwell Road. Our intent is to provide education and pastoral support environment centred on our community of Northwood, while elevating the girls' horizons and where their ambition could take them. We are also part of the Girls' Day School Trust, whose aim is to ensure we reach as many girls as possible. I'll return to these two themes in a moment. The school currently hosts a range of extracurricular activities during the week and the weekend that reflect the diversity of interests and passions of the girls. From the Northwood Ninjas, a very active and increasingly successful netball team, to Push and Glide, a swimming club where many local children learn the confidence to swim and enjoy the water. We also host activities such as speech, drama, chess, rainbows, to name a few. These activities have been successfully operating at the school under community use agreement since 2018. So on to the reasons why I'm here tonight. That is to extend the hours of operation of our all-weather sports pitch, make it available to the local community. Our application is in response to increasing demand from local clubs and associations to use our facilities. It will allow us to line the operating hours that we already have for hosting activities inside our assembly and sports hall. As you will recognise, this will provide us with greater flexibility, plus provide for a small increase in capacity compared to what we already host. This is important for Northwood College. not only does it improve our accessibility to those who might not have similar facilities at their schools, but it clearly shows to our girls and it demonstrates the importance and benefit of those connections we make with our community. Our success over the last 18 months on the netball pitch, thanks to the Northwood Ninjas, is a case in point. Secondly, the rent we charge clubs and associations is an important income stream for the school's scholarship and bursary fund. Increasing the usage of the site allows us in turn to create opportunities for the girls to attend the school, in keeping with the aims of the Girls' Day School Trust, which I mentioned earlier. We are increasingly having to think imaginatively on how to provide support to students in these financially challenging times. If I may acknowledge some of the concerns raised in respect to this application, we are not, and nor do we intend to ever be, a sports club. What we offer to host is limited to those groups and clubs who are local to Northwood, who understand the needs of those who live around us, and as part of the condition of using the site, they must respect the possible friction points on parking and noise that were described earlier. In my experience, they have proved incredibly responsive in doing so. Indeed, I would point out that by encouraging more students to participate in after-school activities, we hope to reduce the congestion associated with normal pick-up times on Maxwell Road. We are grateful for the consideration by the Highways Officer and the Noise Officer for this proposal, and note neither have raised objections, subject to conditions and planning obligations. I would also highlight that Sports England has also confirmed their support for this proposal. With respect to the concerns in relation to heritage, amenity and ecological impacts with regard to floodlighting, I note the committee acknowledges that this is not part of this current application. Our application is about increasing the utility of the site during daylight hours. However, should we see this as an opportunity, should we consider the need for using the courts after dark, we'll of course submit a new application for separate consideration. One other point that was brought up by a previous speaker was the parking on her particular road. I'd just like to make it clear to the committee, all access to the site is from Maxwell Road, which is on the opposite side. It's on the east side of the site, and therefore there should not be direct implications for the previous residents' location. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak in support of this important scheme, which we think will provide significant benefits to the school and local community. We are pleased that the officers have recommended to you that this application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. Any questions? We have three up. So, Councillor Chamdale first.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Andrews, for that. A couple of questions. Is that okay, Chairman, if I just shoot them out? Okay. First of all, you mentioned the reason why you're putting this application in terms of the previous one, which was limited in terms of time. Now you want to increase it to 9 p.m., is that correct?
That's 9 p.m., yes.
You mentioned many things, capacity, accessibility, and you mentioned at the end, I put down cash. So it's mainly for a revenue stream, is it?
Both. We invite, as I said earlier, we invite clubs onto the site that we think the girls will be interested in and will benefit from. So Northwood Ninjas, the example I use, has allowed us to really improve the quality of our girls' sports teams. But yes,
so it's a yes then, basically.
Yeah,
that's the lawyer's answer. Extended, so it's a revenue stream. In terms of what do you have any activity after 6 p.m. currently on site, or do the girls that attend the school? What's the time limit that they're?
So we have activities in our gym and our drama studio.
No, outside. In terms of what we're talking about the outside.
I don't think so. I would
so
have to go
you
and
have
check.
Nothing after 6 o'clock. So
I would have to go and check out.
So in terms of, sorry, I'm firing it quite fast. Just the brain works like that sometimes. So basically, everything after 6 is going to be hired out to external sources. Am I correct in?
So external clubs and associations come onto site from about 4 o'clock.
Right, so
does that answer your question?
I'm specifically asking from 6 to 9 because that's the hours you're asking to increase. So all activity that will take place between 1800 and 2100, that will be all external usage.
So there will be clubs generated on school. Well, it'll be both. It'll be external and school activities.
Okay. we had the petition also mention a few points. I mean, have you had any dialogue with the residents surrounding the play area?
So we're part of the Northwood Association, Residents Association, plus we're involved in Northwood 130, which is a community work with the local, it's involved in outreach work with the local community. I've been at the school for 3 months, and I've not been directly involved in those conversations, but I know the school are represented on both communities.
Sorry, just on that point again, has anybody physically gone around, knocked on every single door, posted a leaflet and said, this is what we intend to do you have any issues?
I can't comment on that, I do not know.
You mentioned something about lights that in the future, should you need, I didn't quite understand that. Is that floodlights, if you need to put floodlights in at a later stage? Were you sort of gearing towards that?
We have 3 sites, all-weather pitches on the site. This only relates to one of those on the external boundary. At the moment, we don't see a need for floodlights.
So if you've got 3 pitches, at the moment, in the report, it just states 2 pitches about basketball. What other sports were you thinking of holding on with those 2 plus the third one? What would be on the third one?
It's a netball. The pitch that we're related in this application is solely for netball.
Sorry, Chairman, it's gone a bit.
Just
one more.
Councillor Davis and Councillor Cawthorne won't have any questions left to ask.
Sorry,
please do ask.
I'll just do one more then.
One.
In the report, it's a lot of working out is based on 2 pitches. So will you be only renting out 2 at a time between the hours of 6 p.m. and 2100, or will you be renting out all 3?
It's related to 2 pitches, the centre pitch and the one that's the subject of this application.
Yeah, I understand that bit. The point I'm asking is, are 3 pitches going to be used at the same time during these hours? Because the reason why is we base it on what is presented before us. So if you're having 3 pitches, it's nice to know the numbers in terms of what total numbers you're going to have. That's all I'm going to ask.
So if you look at the photo on the screen there, you can see there's a green and blue pitch. It's highlighted by the operator there, and then the large. So that's the main centre pitch, which is surrounded by buildings on all 4 sides. This application relates to the top of the screen there, that square area there that's currently brown, but it's now surfaced and used as a netball arena.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis, followed by Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, if I may, Chairman.
I think 2's permissible. Yeah.
Thank you. At the moment, can I just confirm the only access to that site is through Maxwell, in
Correct.
Maxwell Road, yeah? There's no other entrances that can be used?
So there is another entrance. If you towards the bottom of, the middle of that screen where there's heavy trees.
Yeah.
There is a gate.
Is that
not
currently used?
That is only used by our staff to bring on to dispose of garden waste, but it's not used by parents. It's part of the condition of the site that we do not use that as an entrance to the school.
Okay, brilliant. And the second question is, what time does the swimming pool close?
That's a good question.
My reason behind that is I can see online that you have 70 places allocated for the swimming pool, and in the application it's allocating 43. So are they all used in the same spaces, or have you segregated? Sorry.
Which spaces?
The car parking spaces. I can see there's 43 in the application, and then you've got the swimming pool people. If they're going to be using at the same time, there's a crossover between the number of spaces.
I'm pretty sure that the swimming pool finishes about 7, but please, I would have to go and check my detail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you very much. After my colleagues have had their go, I've only got a couple, so I'll be as brief as I can. I must admit, I thought this was a curious application because clearly we're talking about 9 o'clock in the evening, and yet without floodlights, that can only work at certain times of the year. And I think it's noteworthy on page 22, Sport England actually say something about the optimum time being 10 p.m. actually. So I suppose given where you are currently and given where you're seeking to go through this application, I guess residents might be forgiven for thinking this could be a bit of a Trojan horse toward perhaps a later yet finish time with the addition of floodlights. I mean, would that be fair? Because you've hinted yourself about the possibility of floodlights coming at some point.
I just don't see how that could be affordable in the current climate. I've got to pay for staff to be on situ, and as I said, we have no intent to be a sports club.
Yeah.
And school-age girls shouldn't be doing sport at that time of night, is my opinion.
But it's open to wider community, though, isn't it?
Wider community, but children.
Okay. Couple more. We've established that you've not engaged directly with residents in the Glen, but that's another point. But
that may have occurred prior to my time.
Okay.
And as the previous speakers noted, there is a working relationship with my predecessor.
Okay. And then finally, in relation to, you talked about staffing, in relation to supervision, are there any supervision arrangements in place at present, and would there be any proposed as part of this arrangement if it's consented tonight?
All activity is supervised by sports coaches. The girls are not allowed to access the facilities unsupervised. That's part of our condition of insurance and safeguarding requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chair. I originally had 3 questions. Now they've been narrowed down to 1. Just want to get my head around the usage of what the current students will be using. Is there any boarding provision in the school? Is it all day?
Our school is 100% day.
Okay, that's brilliant. Just to clear the usage. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Any more questions, Councillor Davis?
Sorry, just to come back on a point that Councillor Cawthorne asked. You said that anyone using the facility is going to have a coach with them. Is that including private hire as well?
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you.
So if I can just elaborate on that, the clubs that come onto site are there for the benefit of the girls, and we offer them to other students from other schools as well to come onto our site. So by definition, they're being coached, they're being managed, they're being supervised, and that's a condition of our safeguarding.
May I come back with that? So you're not. So if I had 10 friends that wanted to hire out to play netball, that wouldn't be allowed.
I don't see how we'd be able to accommodate you.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
One last question from me, then you are free to return to the gallery. So Ms Mackenzie, when she spoke, mentioned around parking. So already we saw with the hours of operation, this site is in use today, and are you aware of any parking issues or overspill from the volume of use that you have at the moment?
So the main challenge we have is during school drop-off, 8 o'clock in the morning, and at pick-up at 3:30. And there, the parents come down Maxwell Road, and we do have points of friction, which we communicate to the parents to try and adjust behaviours. It's an ongoing challenge, and that's why we're members of the Northwood Residents Association, to explore ideas and better ways to manage that challenge. Once, in my personal opinion, having worked there till 9 o'clock at night, once you go past 5 o'clock, it returns to normal, very quiet street that I would normally expect.
Thank you very much. There are no further questions from the councillors. So, Mr Andrews, thank you very much. If you could just turn your microphone off and then return to the gallery. So before we move on to the questions and debate, I'm going to pass over to Ed briefly just to talk about, I think, the air quality aspect of what Ms Mackenzie had mentioned.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just clarify the question regarding air quality contribution. So the air quality contribution goes towards mitigation measures, and that's for the implementation of the borough-wide air quality action plan, which does include trees and work such as traffic calming.
Thank you, Ed. And Sihar, just before we kick off the debate, is there any sort of legal advice or words you would like to give to the committee just around what we're considering here this evening?
Thank you, Chairman. Considering the debate we've had and the reports that have been discussed and the presentation given, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siha. So, Councillor Chamdell is going to kick us off with the debate.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a bit confused about this parking at the moment, because we have in the report on page 8, we have robust reason for. We don't have robust reason for refusal. We're going from a 6 p.m. to a 9 p.m. We've been told it will have no adverse effect on the roads. We use a worst case scenario and a best case scenario. Here they're saying we're going to have 2 basketball pitches, which are going to 14 players per pitch, plus referee, plus supporters, and we've got 43 parking spaces, and they suggest between 7 and 8, where there's an overlap, there might be a problem with 1 car parking space. With a P-tail value of 2, I don't see the dynamics in the numbers. It just doesn't add up to me. We have various statements made by the officers, but I'd just like some breakdown on what these robust reasons they have on why it shouldn't cause an issue. Because if it's as the applicant said, it's a very quiet street after 5 o'clock. It won't be after 6 o'clock because you've got loads of traffic coming in and out. It also doesn't mention Maxwell Road because the petitioner said they have issues with parking at the moment, and looking at the roads there, they're very sort of small roads there, and I can't see, if a car's parked on one side, I can't see how many are going to get through the other way. On the plans, Mr. Chairman, it shows on page 38, I'm assuming, which is rather a naughty thing to do, is this is the car parking spaces. If that is the case, it shows 52 car parking spaces there, and yet the report suggests there's 43. So there's a couple of things I've thrown there as a starter. I don't see how the maths add up. So if the officers could sort of really dig down deep and tell me how they reach that, because they have a 50% modal share. I'm not quite sure what that is. If the officer could help me with that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdell. So we have a starter from Councillor Chamdell on those points there. Anybody want to pick that up? Alan, did you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Alongside the planning application, a transport assessment has been submitted, and this has been scrutinised by officers. In a worst case scenario, we anticipate up to 1 car could be displaced on street, which we consider to be insignificant. Accompanying the planning application would be a travel plan. There's town centre car parking available. I do not see that the application would have an unacceptable impact on highway safety nor the surrounding road network. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. I'm just going to hand over to Michael next, just to come back on Councillor Chamdell's point as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, so the only vehicular access to this site which would be available to the community or residents is from Maxwell Road, which is shown here on the plan, or the satellite image. This is where to our understanding, is 43 car parking spaces is located. In terms of the modal share, reference mentioned by Councillor Chamdell, and essentially what that means is out of 100% of the students to attend, or residents, or users to attend the site, 66% would be travelling by car based on the information submitted, and it's anticipated that 50% of that 66% would car share. So this is where the numbers are coming from. Residents are not just accessing the site by car. If you have 28 visitors, we wouldn't anticipate 28 to attend the site by individual cars. Many of them would attend the site by other sustainable means, whether that be walking or cycling, or whether that be attending via a coach, and that's where the car sharing comes into this. And I think as a deputy head mentioned earlier, it's you've got a school use on site, and they would be staying on site from the end of school time as well. So there's a potential mitigation for more trips in that sense, if that makes sense. I think that's probably where I'll leave it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Michael. Before I go to Councillor Cawthorne, Councillor Chamdell, did you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm confused even more. There's been no clarification on what basis this assumption has been made, and it's quite clear. This is an assumption. The applicant is assuming. There's no facts, there's no figures, there's no meat on the bone at all, because this is not being run from 6 to 9 p.m. at the moment. So you've chucked in other things like the percentage reduction factor. I'm a very simple person, so I'm asking for an explanation of how you got to it. If you say, look, listen, this is a report. I've read this report about 4 times. So, going over the same points, it's not going to help me in any way, shape or form. I'm asking for an explanation how the numbers have been acquired. The applicant doesn't run the site at the moment from these times. So the assumptions are people are going to car share, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. But if you say this is just an assumption, then I would ask, what's the review mechanism in place that should this not work? Because there's nothing mentioned about Maxwell Road being the only way. There is another entrance there, and I believe the deputy head made a point that parents do use. I think he did. I'm not quite sure, but I'm still not confident that these stack up, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to sort of labour on that point, because these are things that are just put down here. And the reason why I'm digging deep into this, because what this committee decides has an impact on other places as well, because Northwood School has been mentioned. So the question I ask is, are there any issues being reported by Northwood School? Because when we do have, unfortunately, these halls hired out, we've had, in all our wards, we have a lot of problems with litter, noise, and all the rest that goes along with it. Because at the end of the day, I understand, it's tough financial times, but they're hiring it out as a revenue stream, fair enough, but what degree of harm will that cause our residents? And that's what I'm concerned with. What is going to happen in the future? It's great, saying this, because they've only mentioned 2 pitches. Now, they haven't mentioned the 3rd pitch. Now, with the 3 pitches being utilised at one time, what impact will it cause? Because at the moment, it's 1 extra car space. With the other pitch being used, with another 14 people, potentially, that's another 7, 8 cars, 9 cars. So I think we just need a little bit more meat on the bone, please. That's my last question.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdell. Ed Mandip, did you want to come in on any of that?
Just quickly, we've checked and there's no enforcement complaints at Northwood School at all. In terms of parking on the Glen, if that's the main concern, I do think it's probably quite unlikely, because that's quite a long route round. I think there'd be parking would happen closer to the entrance of the school.
Thank you, Ed. Councillor Cawthorne was next, followed by Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Like Councillor Chamdell, I'm struggling, to be honest, with the guidance that we're getting on the highways issues, but I'll leave that to one side. That's not my question. I've got a couple for now. One is not dissimilar, and that's around noise and the impact of noise. There's a statement in the report, I think on page 9 in the summary, that says the council has a specialist noise officer, apparently, who's concluded that the impact, I think, similarly will be negligible. We've heard about the noise that exists on site now at existing hours. Can I understand, please, how exactly that assessment has been made? Is that an exact science? Is it a subjective judgment on the part of the officer? Can I just understand how they've come to that view, please?
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. On the noise, hand over to you, Michael.
So the application is supported by a noise assessment, which has been put together by their own noise consultant. It's been assessed by the internal noise specialist, who has concluded that there is an existing operation here on the site, which functions as a school. That's the existing noise environment. This, although it would extend the hours, it's not of a significant level that would be considered sufficient reason to refuse the application. But officers have taken what residents have said into consideration, and we are recommending that a noise mitigation management plan is secured by condition, and then we would scrutinise the detail of that condition when it comes forward, and we would, it would be enforced. There would be a mechanism by which residents could raise complaints, and that's the mitigation measures that we've secured for this one. It's not, like I said, it's not something that we would consider to be a reason for refusal or something that could be defended robustly in an appeal scenario.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Cawthorne, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah.
You had another question as well, but
I do have another
come back
question.
on that one
I do have
first.
another question.
Yes.
Yeah, noted, and I'm kind of twitching a bit because it's the sort of thing that you often hear where there's been an assessment and it's all been professionally done in accordance with industry standards. I do get all that. I do understand it. What that all amounts to on in practical terms for residents, I'm less sure about, to be honest. However, let's leave it there for now. I've got another question about engagement with the community. So I'm not quite sure what came out of the questions I asked there, but I kind of sense there may be some sort of regular dialogue with local residents. Is that something that, if we are minded to agree this, and I must admit I'm a long way from feeling like I want to at the moment, frankly, but if we are, is that something that we might reasonably condition to make sure that is robust?
Good question, Councillor Cawthorne. We will get an answer shortly. Who would? We will come back to that one, Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Davis, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, I have a few questions. I must admit, parking is still an issue for me, even though we've mulled this over a few times. We already have an operation of a swimming pool that offers swimming lessons. So they're using them parking spaces as well. We also have courts that are in hire at the moment as well. I can't see how this is the spaces that are allocated, if it's 43 or 70. There is a difference in spaces as well. I can see that there's 70 online on their website and 43 in the application. It doesn't sit right with me. If you have 10 children that arrive at a swimming lesson accompanied by a minibus of a challenging netball team, there's not parking there including supporters. I'm really question that, and I'd hope we could look into that. My second question is, have we allowed for coaches and minibuses in the travel plan? It only takes for a netball tournament or something to happen after hours, and we're stuck with 5 minibuses from schools within the borough. Doesn't look like there's parking adequate for that as well. And in the noise assessment, sorry, Chair, I know I'm giving you all three at once. What's the current decibel levels for the school that's opening? The school as it's open, what is the decibel levels at the moment? Surely that should be available in the report. I can't see it, because I'd be interested to know if the sound within the area was actually taken from the Glen when the school is open during the day, to see what the decibel levels are. And that's it at the moment, Chairman.
At the moment, thank you, Councillor Davis. So we have the parking, 43 versus 70. Provision for coaches and minibuses, and decibel levels. You're going to pick this one up, Ed?
So in terms of parking, I'm going to let Alan answer that question. The noise impact assessment is a standard submission with a planning application, and it's often reviewed during the course of an application. In terms of the decibel levels, I don't have that detail to hand. Michael might be looking it up now at the moment. The travel plan would be secured by the Section 106 agreement, so the details of that will be secured at a later date, and we can ensure that those items are covered if you're concerned by that. Now, if members are very concerned about the impact of these proposals, we could propose a temporary consent with a monitoring to see what impact there is on residents.
Thank you very much. Did you want to come back on anything there, Councillor Davis?
I'm okay at the moment. I do have one more question, though, if I may.
Before we come to that,
Yep.
can I just allow officers to go back to Councillor Cawthorne on his point previously? Councillor Cawthorne, would you just remind of...
I will indeed. It was really around whether we might reasonably condition a requirement for, a formal arrangement to engage with local residents, rather than just being a member of the Norfolk Residents Association, to actually talk to neighbours in an effort to be a good neighbour. If that's already happening, fine, but I just think I'd want to see it crystallised in what we end up deciding, assuming we do decide that, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Is that something that we would generally condition?
It isn't something that we would be able to cover by condition. It sounds like more of a complaints process. But my suggestion for a temporary consent would be a way to try and resolve that issue.
Thank you. So, Councillor Gill, followed by Councillor Davis and Councillor Chandell.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding the lighting aspect. In these months is fine. I mean, you can play on till even now, it's 8 o'clock now, and the lighting outside is quite natural still. But I'm more concerned in the winter stages when 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock darkness resides, and that's when I think, is there going to be a future proposal for lighting to be put on in terms of floodlights? And that's where my concern kind of comes from.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this question. So the application in front of us doesn't include floodlighting. An application that came forward in the future for floodlighting, unless there was a petition or a member call-in, could potentially be determined under delegated authority by officers. However, if members are concerned, they could request that that application come to committee for determination.
Thank you, Ed. Any follow-up on that, Councillor Gill? No. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. So really now, I just want to ask if we can condition some things. So are we the access road on, I think it's Myrtleside Close, can we put in a condition that no access to the site is allowed after 6 o'clock? If it's only used for garden waste at the moment, I can't see that being a big issue. The second condition I'd like to add, which I don't know and I always have a curveball, is are we able to condition that the Muga area is only used when a fully trained coach is around? I know I'm teetering on the edge there, or is present, because if it's not for private use for Joe Bloggs off the street and it's only coaches and teams, I can't see that really being an issue. So I'd ask if we could condition that one. I'd also like to condition that between the hours of 6 and 9 we have a noise or complaints contact available. And the final one would be, are we able to condition a winter and summer hours? So yes, I understand there's going to be no floodlights on the site, so are we able to condition that the site has to stop its use by 6:30 in the winter and go on till 2100 in the summer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Should we rattle through these one at a time? Michael, did you want to come back on a previous point before we do?
So it was in respect of the condition restricting access via Myrtleside Close. There's an existing, it's a proposed condition. It's on the existing permission as well, but proposed condition 13, which states that there's no drop-off or pick-up permitted from Myrtleside Close, so that's already covered as part of the recommendation.
Good news for that one. The next one, in terms of the mugger and operation, a fully trained coach, I think was the the term, at all times.
Can I suggest that we propose no tournaments? So that was another concern of yours, so no tournaments are held. I do understand the point that if you have lots of clubs, lots of coaches, that is not what we're proposing. And perhaps we don't say coach may be supervised. So I don't think it's proposed to have free-for-alls. And I know from clubs that my children attend, there is always someone qualified who is DBS checked, etc. So I just wonder whether the term coach might cause problems amongst all activities.
if I come back on that, if it's not for private use, I don't see it being an issue if it names coach, trainer, trained person. I'd be very dubious with supervised, because a parent could be DBS checked and able to supervise. I just don't think that's right. If we were to put coach or club member, something like that, yeah.
Coach, club member.
Yeah.
And the piece around tournaments, championships. Okay, so the next one of Councillor Davis's suggestions was noise and complaints contact.
Yeah, there is a condition proposing a noise mitigation and management plan, so we could require those details are included within that.
And the last one was seasonal hours, presumably longer hours in the summer, shorter hours in the winter. Is that something that we would condition?
I have to be honest, I think the sun will predict when the pitches can be used, and I know that the concerns in this respect are about the potential for floodlighting, but floodlighting is not under consideration. So by virtue of the highways movements and there not being sufficient noise impacts, I wouldn't advocate that it's a condition that we propose to having winter and summer hours. You may find that if we were to get a floodlighting application and there was harm identified at certain hours, floodlighting might have seasonal hours, but in terms of operational hours, I don't think it's necessary for such a condition to be added.
Okay, I'll allow you to come back, Councillor Davis.
We've not mentioned floodlights. My concern would be that 5 o'clock in the winter, it's going to be dark. So I would rather have a condition there to protect the residents. That's my reason behind it, having summer and winter hours, is that at least the residents know that in the winter they're going to be fairly quiet from 6 o'clock and they can't go past that. If for any reason there was floodlights to be installed, I'd like to see as well that to come back to committee anyway. So then we could review the hours then.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. And you had mentioned, Mandip, that, no, I think it was Ed actually, there was a possibility that we could add that in as a condition if floodlights was a subsequent application, that it would come back to this committee to review. Yeah.
Can we ask for clarification on exactly what the seasonal hours were? The reason I ask this is because the application before us that the school have submitted is to amend condition number 12 to quite specific hours, so it changes the nature of the application, and I wonder whether we therefore need to defer it to ask the school whether that's actually what they want, and if it's not, perhaps it wouldn't be the same recommendation. It would be the same recommendation from us. It might not be the same decision for yourselves. So if can we clarify the hours?
I'm happy, providing the floodlighting can come back to this committee, then I'm happy to leave the time as it is for the time being. Okay, providing floodlighting comes back to this committee. If.
Councillor Shamdale's been waiting very patiently. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. On the points that Councillor Davis made, move it along, you mentioned temporary consent. I think that's top of the tree. Got to have that in, because the noise mitigation study, whatever you call it, if there's nobody playing on that field at the moment, the question is, how have they come to a noise level that is currently reached, or do they do it while school time? So there's real concern there. In terms of the hours of operation, which I was going to mention, which Councillor Davis has interrogated very well, I still think the school, the applicant themselves have admitted there won't be nothing taking place during the winter months because it's dark. Listen, look, we've been in these committees long enough. We know what's going to happen, yeah? That application will be coming in soon for lights, and it should come before the committee. Because we know during the winter it's dark by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So unless they play with torches, I'm not sure what they're going to do. But that temporary consent, I think, is I would definitely, at the moment, I'm still sitting on the fence on this, even with the conditions which Councillor Davies has stated.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdell. Could you just clarify temporary consent?
I don't know, because I think Mandy mentioned it, so I just want to know a bit more about that. What exactly does that mean?
It would just say. I think all we're proposing is that those two conditions would be for 2 years only. So the words would be amended to for 24 months. The all-weather playing services shall only be used between X hours. And then the final line would say either to revert back to consented hours. We'd put the consented hours in unless an application is received. They'd need to do another Section 73.
Thank you.
Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. I'm warmer to the idea of a temporary consent, although, again, like Councillor Chamdall, I'm still struggling a little bit. However, I do have a question for our legal officer, whose name escapes me, and of course, because of the light shining on a nameplate, I can't even read a name, so forgive me if I refer to you as the legal officer. It's just the comments on page 36 around equality and human rights, which talks about taking account of the need to eliminate discrimination, advance equality of opportunity, and so on. In terms of people with protected characteristics, it goes on to list those characteristics, and it goes on to talk about having due regard to the above goals, so we should consider whether persons with particular protected characteristics will be affected by a proposal when compared to persons who do not share that characteristic. And where that arises, we're being invited to make a judgment in relation to that and the wider benefits purported to the application. That's how I'm reading it. So, would I infer from that then that were we to think that those human rights considerations were to outweigh those benefits, that they could be reasonable grounds for refusal? That clearly isn't the view of the case officer, because I can see the recommendation, but potentially it could be. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, you're right. So as you read from the report, so in terms of the development overall, human rights have been considered, and people with protected characteristics are considered whilst making this application, whether it's an approval or a refusal. Of course, that's for the committee members to decide, but these human rights issues that you've addressed are considered, and people with protected characteristics have been considered whilst making, whether it's assessments or any reports that have been carried out on the issues we've been talking about, so whether it's parking or lighting. So protected characteristics and human rights issues kind of go hand in hand. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you. At the end of the day, these things are subjective, aren't they? So thank you. That's helpful.
So, no other councillors have indicated. It probably is a good opportunity, just over an hour into the discussion on this agenda item, just to recap where we're at. So we have had an awful lot of discussion. We've heard from a petitioner and the applicant. We have a few conditions that we've noted down. I just thought it would be good to run through them with officers. Qualified/supervised, maybe we delegate the exact wording to be signed off by the chair, but we can include that. Championships, tournaments, we're not going to put in. Floodlights, we have agreed would, if there ever was an application on this site for the installation of floodlights, that would need to come back to this committee in the sense that it wouldn't normally if we didn't stipulate it. And temporary consent, are we time bounding for 24 months?
And then there was expansion of condition 15 to have a noise complaint procedure.
And the contact details.
Councillor Davis.
With everything that's just been said there, I'd be happy to move in support of officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I am moved. Councillor Cawthorne, you are next.
I'm going to second that on the basis, not that I'm comfortable with it, because I do have some major concerns. I do think that the petitioner and the watching public, however, should be aware that we do not have a completely free hand to act on this. We are very much bound by national planning policy, and the risk is if we are overly prescriptive and we unreasonably refuse the application, then the applicant may well appeal, and of course we will lose our ability to condition and influence it in any way, shape or form. So we do have to strike a balance in coming to that. So with a heavy heart I'm seconding that recommendation, as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Before we go to the vote, Councillor Chamdale, did you have anything
I
to
was
add
just
there?
going to second it, similar to Councillor Cawthorne, with a heavy heart. We, as he said, you know, he can go to appeal and then we could lose it quite easily. As it says in the report, there's no robust reasons, but I think with the conditions that we've put in place, I think it's the best fit that we can really put in.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdale. So we are moved, we are seconded. I have just discussed with officers the conditions that we've agreed on. Can we have a show of hands to approve this application? As amended. Against? Okay. Five, 4 and 1 against. Agenda item 6 is approved. Moving on to agenda item 7, this is Beaches Yard, Horton Road in Useley. And Michael, you're going to take us through this one again.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So before we start, officers will draw attention to the committee addendum, which amends the approved plans condition, I believe it's number 2, to ensure that the drawings referenced show the correct widening of the unadopted road from 6.5 metres to 8.5 metres. Right, to start. So item 7, as you said, relates to Beaches Yard, which comprises a rectangular plot of land sited to the north of Horton Road and east of an unadopted road, as shown on plan there. The site is apportioned into 2 parcels of land and functions as separate units, with the northern half used for storage of vehicles and the southern half used as a yard and place of residence for travelling show people, including single-storey permanent structures, static homes and caravans. A commercial building occupied by Addison Lee is located to the north here, beyond which is the Uxbridge Football Club site here, which is the subject of item 8, which is next on the agenda. Addison Lee, Uxbridge Football Club and Beaches Yard are all accessed by the same unadopted road, and this is a matter that the Highways Authority has considered in detail. Although the Stockley Park golf course is located to the east, the area is mainly characterised by commercial buildings, including Prologis Park to the west, south-east, which is down here, the Space Station self-storage building to the south, the courier services to the west, and there are also residential properties to the southwest, which includes numbers 201 to 239 Horton Road. So this is the constraints plan. This shows the site is located within a strategic industrial location, as indicated by the light orange colour there. The Stockley Park golf course is to the east and also forms part of the Grade 2 listed registered park and garden, coloured in red. This land also forms part of the designated green belt and extends to the north and south as indicated by green. So just to confirm, this is green belt, this is green belt, and this is green belt. Not shown on plan again, but for context, the site is located within the Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area, and is surrounded on all sides by focus areas. This includes the Hillingdon Hospital Air Quality Focus Area, the Hayes Focus Area, the M4 Corridor Focus Area, and the West Drayton Useley Focus Area. So this is a bird's eye view of the site, again dated 2019. Here you can see the dense area of tree planting adjoining the site to the east, forming a visual buffer between the open landscape of the golf course to the north and east, and the built-up areas to the south and west. So So here are some photos taken of the site. Just to clarify, the site is indicated by the red box there. And this is a closer picture, again taken from Horton Road. And this is a view of the site alongside the unadopted road previously referenced, which connects to Horton Road. And here are some pictures of the travelling show people site, this on the southern section of the site. See there. And this is the northern section of the site, which is again used for vehicle storage in association with Addison Lee, which is shown here. This photo also shows the access road, or vehicle access road, which leads up to the Uxbridge Football Club. So this is the site context, which includes residential properties, and the southwest of the site, shown to the left of the image, and the commercial uses to the south of the site, shown to the right of the image. And again, this is the more commercial development, which this is the Prologis Park West London development site, which is to the south-east of Beech's Yard. So in terms of planning history, the site was granted planning permission in 1983 under the reference shown on screen for the erection of a 4,000 square foot workshop in connection with the use of the site for repair and maintenance of motor vehicles, fairground equipment, and standing of 5 residential caravans. Although the workshop element of this permission was never implemented, the residential element was and established a residential use of the site. The current application seeks permission for redevelopment of the site to provide a flexible warehouse facility with ancillary office space totaling circa 7,000 square metres of floor space. The development would include 4 HGV loading bays, 45 car parking spaces, 38 cycle parking spaces, access arrangements, landscaping and associated infrastructure. Officers would highlight that the proposal has been revised through the application process to address officer concerns with regard to design and highway safety considerations. So this is the proposed site layout plan, showing the coverage of the site across the plot, with the red bubble indicating the amendments as secured as part of the application, which includes a setback from Horton Road by 10 metres and improved landscape and tree planting to the front of the site, which is to the south, shown here. So this is the proposed basement car park. So let me just turn my page here, which shows the provision of 45 car parking spaces, 8 of which are for active electric vehicles. This is the proposed ground floor, which comprises of approximately 2,000 square metres of warehouse storage space and loading bays, shown to the right of the image. This shows the first floor. The only element of this plan which will be used for storage is indicated here, which equates to approximately 980 square metres of warehouse. This is the second floor, which shows the ancillary office space, which is indicated here, and this is the roof plan. And as you can see, there's a lot of PV panels proposed as part of the scheme. So the top elevation is one of the primary facing elevations of the scheme and fronts onto the unadopted road. The elevation will be broken up by glazed elements, complemented by green cladding panels and landscaping to the front, shown here. So notably, the Prologis Park West London site development is indicated to the right of the image here, with the main body of the proposed building sitting below the height established by this development. The more ancillary elements of the proposed development, including the second floor office space, which is indicated here, would sit at approximately the same height as the Prologis Park development, which is here. The elevation at the bottom of the screen would face the east and would function as the rear elevation of the development. This elevation would not be readily seen from the Horton Road street scene and would be screened by the adjoining tree line. So the image at the top of the screen shows the south-facing elevation, again considered to be one of the primary facing elevations which fronts onto Horton Road. A green wall was proposed here with glazing, and together they combine to activate this elevation, and alongside the tree planting to the front, secured as part of the amended scheme, officers would consider that the design integrates in with the adjoining greenbelt aesthetic sufficiently. The image at the bottom of the screen as well, just to add, is the north elevation of the screen of the scheme, and again this would function as the rear facing elevation, not readily seen from the street scene. So this is a long section of the proposed development. As shown, the basement would function as car parking, so this is the basement. You'd have storage space at ground level and first level, so here and here, and you'd have the office space at second floor level. This is a cross-section of the same development, again showing the breakdown of uses of each level. To summarise in terms of design, following amendments to the scheme and subject to planning conditions which would ensure high quality design detail, the proposed development would be considered acceptable from a design perspective. And moving on to highways considerations, it is important to note that the proposed development would widen the existing unadopted road from 6.5 metres to 8.5 metres. So this would allow 2.5 metres width for the existing on-street car parking on the unadopted road, and then you'd have a further 3 metres, in total 6 metres, exclusively for moving vehicles to access the site and other sites on this road. So in the worst case scenario, the site would be accessed by articulated heavy good vehicles measuring up to 16.5 metres in length. This image shows a HGV accessing the unadopted road from the west on Horton Road here, turning into the site, or turning into the road, passing by a HGV going the other way, and then turning into the site and reversing into the loading bay. So as shown, there is technically space for 2 large HGVs to pass each other side by side on the 8.5 metre wide road proposed. This slide shows a HGV leaving the site, turning west onto Horton Road, and again there is technically sufficient space for large vehicles to pass on the proposed width of road. So this shows the access and egress for the Horton Road junction for HGVs approaching from or leaving to the east, which is this direction here. Sufficient information has therefore been submitted to demonstrate that the site could function in a worst case scenario. However, officers note that there would only be certain points on the road where 2 HGVs could pass. It is therefore considered necessary to secure a delivery and servicing plan to prevent a scenario whereby there are HGVs both entering and leaving the site at the same time. The plan would also need to prevent conflict between HGV arrivals and departures to and from the site, with road users accessing the Ellison Lee site, but more so the Uxbridge Football Club located to the north. To ensure that a delivery and servicing plan is robustly secured, officers have agreed a £64,000 contribution with the applicant for active monitoring of this plan. In the event the plan is not complied with, the non-compliance would be reported to the planning enforcement team as a breach of the planning permission, and the necessary planning enforcement processes would follow. This would be in addition to the £159,000 contribution secured for active travel zone measures to encourage sustainable forms of travel, and a £330,000 contribution towards air quality mitigation measures. It is also recommended that a travel plan is secured by legal agreement alongside a Section 278 agreement, again to secure any and all the necessary highways works required to facilitate this scheme. For the reasons set out within the committee report and subject to securing the necessary planning conditions and obligations by legal agreement, the proposal is considered to accord with development plan and is recommended for approval. I pass back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Michael, for a detailed overview. We'll go straight to the questions. Councillor Cawthorne, then Councillor Davis, Councillor Chamdow.
Thank you. I don't want to prolong this, but I think it does make a lot of sense, actually. I'm happy with the recommendations. I do want to ask, if I may, though, if it's possible to see a visual of the view from the Greenbelt as is the case now, and how it will look when consented, if consented. Is that possible? I'm just interested in an officer's take on impacts on the Greenbelt, that's all.
Yep. So, okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So I don't have an image as part of this presentation, but I know that there was a visual impact assessment carried out as part of the application, which formed part of the submission. This was reviewed by officers and the council's urban design officer, and as part of that review, it was confirmed that there wouldn't be, significant impact on views taken from the Greenbelt. I think you could probably actually see what would be helpful is the satellite image. Sorry, let me find it quickly. Here, and you can see how dense the tree planting is as part of the Stockley Park golf course, and the application has been designed in terms of its bulk and height to sit below the tree line that exists on the neighbouring plot of land. So, in essence, the impact would be not significant.
Thank you. Quick follow-up, if I may, and that relates to these travelling show people, who the report says we're assuming don't need the site. So far as we don't know they don't need the site, but we're saying we assume it. I take it that there are no policy conflicts around provision for these people?
Michael, are you going to pick that one up?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So, as part of the application submission, although it's not part of the public record for confidentiality reasons, we have received a declaration, a signed declaration from the occupants of the site that they are willingly leaving the site. Reasons relating to retirement and wanting to move close to family are cited. That's the reason that there's no longer a demand for them to occupy the site. And in terms of planning policy, there is reference to travelling show people sites within the local plan, but it's more in reference to providing new sites where there is a demand, and in this case there isn't one. So the principle of this change of use is not contrary to policy and is supported in this case.
Thank you very much. With that, I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I have a question on trees as well. So I see from the trees officer, she said there may be a small overlap, or there may be an overlap with roots. And she has recommended that we ask for an in-depth landscape plan. Have we done that?
We can come back to that if you would like a little bit more time just to respond. We can go to...
I mean, I can answer now. I mean, we've got... let me just check the condition number. Condition 13 is the landscape scheme plan, which, as part of which we would secure the detail of the proposal. But like you said, the trees officer was consulted as part of the application in respect of concerns on neighbouring trees, and they confirmed that that the proposal wouldn't have a detrimental impact. There is some removal proposed as part of the scheme, but that's due to the condition of the existing trees on site, which I understand are diseased and therefore need to be removed. And then again, the application proposes replacement tree planting on the southern section of the site as well as the western section adjoining the unadopted road. So, taking all that into consideration, it's considered acceptable in respect of those matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Chamdow.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 42, it says the applicant has failed to secure a section 106. If you could just have something on that. Apart from that, we're going to get some employment here. Site's going to be used for a different purpose. And the other second question, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, is on these parking spaces. There's 30 parking spaces stated, but he said something to do with the London Mayor's traffic plan that only 12 are permissible. How they're going to cut that down and why, really? Why the Mayor wants less parking in an industrial unit. And finally, the last one is page 58. It says the planning permission was approved in 1984. I think your presentation said 1983. Just a little point. Wonder which year it was. Thank you, Miss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shamdal. So two things to tease out there. The section 106 you were going to cover off, Ed?
So just quickly to explain the comment on page 42, essentially this sets out the heads of terms that would be secured, and then at the end of that it is giving officers or the chief planner authority to refuse the application if those heads of terms and contributions weren't secured. I'll just quickly point out that there is an addendum on this item as well that just amends a couple of the plans just for correction. Thanks.
Parking.
Yep, so I guess I gather the comment in respect to 30 car parking spaces may be taken from the representation made by Transport for London. As part of the application process, the scheme was revised a number of times, but we have landed on 45 car parking spaces as the proposal. I think the reason TfL want less car parking spaces is because they identify this site as within an opportunity area, and based on London Plan, they request that there are less car parking spaces. They think that the site is, sustainable enough to operate in such a way that it doesn't need so many parking spaces. But the opinion of the Hillingdon Council Highway Authority is contrary to that. In this case, we've landed on the optimum amount being 45. We are also encouraging sustainable forms of travel through the travel plan that's to be secured by a legal agreement, as well as the active travel zone in contribution, which should again encourage sustainable forms of travel to and from the site. Hopefully that's okay.
Thank you, Michael. Any supplementary on that, Councillor Shamdal?
No, on that point I would like to then formally second and go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any other questions at all? I did just have a couple, Michael. So if you could go back to your slide where we had the road width, one of the last ones there. Just wanted to clarify, the enhanced road of 8.5 metres, is that 2 3-metre driving lanes and a parking lane? And if so, is there a pavement, a sidewalk in there at all, or is that separate to the 8.5?
Yes, so from the plan, or the section hopefully you can see on screen, you've got a 2-metre wide footway on what would be the western side of the unadopted road. Then you've got 2.5 for the existing car parking on site, on the unadopted road, 3 metres for the lane moving northwards, 3 metres for the lane moving southwards, and then another 1.5 metres footway on the side of the site adjoining the application proposal. So you would have sufficient space for vehicular access as well as pedestrian movements up and down either side of that road.
Good news. Busy road, as we will come on to in the next agenda item. So good that it's a wider road, plus we keep the pavement either side. My last question was just on the slide that you had around the exit onto Horton Road for HGVs. So you showed a lorry leaving and turning to the right, and presumably, I know I may have missed the slide when you flicked through it, but we do have one for turning into the left as well. So that is possible, yes. Perfect. Thank you. So we are moved and seconded. No councillors have expressed a desire to ask any further questions. So can I have a show of hands to approve agenda item 7? That is unanimous. Agenda item 7 is approved. We move on now to Michael gets a rest as we move on to agenda item 8, which is Uxbridge Football Club, also on Horton Road in Useley. And Chris, you're going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just before I start the presentation, I would just like to draw members' attention to the addendum, which includes a correction to add the location plan to condition 2, the approved plans condition, and a slight amendment to the condition 4, which is the community use agreement, to add a second part into that condition, which requires a car parking management strategy to be submitted alongside the community use agreement. So item 8 relates to the Uxbridge Football Club on Horton Road, Useley. In terms of the description of development, it is as it reads on screen. It's for the conversion of the stadia pitch to a 3G artificial grass pitch, referenced as a AGP, with a 1.1 metre high fence and replacement 158 seater stand to the eastern elevation of the stadia pitch. The site, which is located within the Greenbelt, comprises of a football stadium, including a pitch and spectator stands, accessed off Horton Road. The surrounding area contains a mix of industrial and commercial uses to the south of the site. Stockley Park Public Recreation Ground is to the west, Stockley Country Park is to the north, and Stockley Park Golf Club is to the east. So you'll see the Greenbelt highlighted in green. The site is just slightly in the middle, and the access road, which Michael referred to in his earlier item, is shown in red, linking the site to the main public highway. It is probably key to point out that this application tips the threshold of a major application purely because of the linking of the access road to the main public highway. So because of the length of that access road, that is why this application has been put forward to be determined by the Major Applications Committee. The actual site boundary itself is less than a hectare, and therefore would only constitute a minor application if it wasn't for that access road. Here you have a bird's eye view. The land subject to redevelopment is the pitch, which is in the middle. Is in the middle of the red line. The ball stop fencing, which is to be placed around the perimeter of the pitch, that's just on the edge of where the red line is now. And the stand is to the eastern flank of the pitch, so it is just here. It's hidden underneath that red line. I'll take you through some quick site photos. So here you have one of these stands, which I believe is the eastern stand. It's in very poor condition at the moment. You have a picture of the pitch with the eastern stand just located here. This is actually the western stand, so this is on the side of the pitch where there is also some changing rooms and a bar associated to the football club as well. This is a picture of the eastern stand, so what you can see here is that over time there's been a severe degradation of this particular stand, and it's no longer fit for purpose. As stated in the description of the development, the proposal seeks consent to replace the existing turf pitch with an artificial grass pitch, the replacement of the east stand and the perimeter ball stop fencing. Here are some of the proposed plans. So you can see the pitch in the centre. There are some trees around the outer edges of the site. Those trees are not affected by the development. Here is an image of the proposed new stand. This is actually an existing plan of the existing stand with an image of how that looks on the right hand side. You've got a fencing elevation, so this fencing will actually replace the timber fencing which is located around the perimeter of the pitch at the moment. The new ball stop fencing is no greater in scale than the proposed than the existing ball stop fencing. Here you've got a section of the proposed stand. This is a proposed ATP plan which just shows the new pitch in its actual location. A drainage layout. 3D view of the stand. And that's it. Given the site's location within the greenbelt, the applicant must demonstrate that the development proposes either appropriate development within the greenbelt or that very special circumstances exist in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework. The replacement of the turf pitch and ball stop fencing are a like-for-like replacement in terms of their scale, and whilst the replacement of the stand would be 60 centimetres taller than the existing stand, it has come to the end of its lifespan, and the replacement stand would not result in a reduction in openness. Taking these points into consideration, the proposal is considered to accord with paragraph 149 exception B of the NPPF and is therefore appropriate development within the greenbelt. As such, demonstration of very special circumstances is not necessary. The proposal would, however, result in the loss of a grass turf playing pitch. As such, Hillingdon have been consulted and raised no objection, subject to the imposition of a condition pertaining to the submission and approval of a community use agreement. Regarding the development's impact upon residential amenity, the nearest residential properties are located approximately 200 metres north of the site in Willow Avenue. Given the significant separation distance, the proposal would not result in harm to residents in terms of privacy, noise, outlook, daylight or sunlight. The proposal is supported by a drainage strategy which provides adequate information to demonstrate the development would not result in an increase in potential flood risk. The application does not propose to increase the spectator capacity, therefore the only additional trips created would be associated to the community use. The applicant has confirmed that the community use would not generate trips above those apparent on a match day, and given the community use cannot take place on match days, no concerns regarding the additional trip generation have been raised. In summary, the proposal seeks permission for appropriate development within the greenbelt and would result in an improved playing surface for the football club and spectator experience. Hillingdon support the proposal subject to the securing of a community use agreement. The proposal clearly provides benefits to the football club and the local community in terms of enhanced sports provision, which is widely supported within the development plan. For those reasons and those set out within the main body of the committee report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Chris, Councillor Cawthorne is going to kick us off.
Thank you. You touched on my question actually when talking about it. As soon as I raised my hand, it was just about the very special circumstances. But I was thought on a site where we're talking about pretty much a like-for-like replacement, and I think a marginally higher fence and stand. I wasn't sure where the policy conflict came in, but you went on to say that doesn't apply, even though it does say that in the report. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think what the report is stating, where we look at greenbelt policy, where there is an increase in development, in particular the scale, which is apparent because there is a very slight change in the height of the existing stand by 60 centimetres. We are allowed to apply some judgment. In this case, there would be no reduction in openness, therefore very special circumstances are not required to be demonstrated, and it would be appropriate development.
Thank you.
Councillor Chamdow, then Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think so. We spent too much time on this. I want to formally suggest that we go with the officer's recommendation, like for like, and it's essential that we have sporting venues which are fit for purpose in 2023. You can see from the pictures they've used by sell-by date quite a while. Commenting just on the 60 centimetres in height, you mentioned that the trees will be covering that, and you're not talking about the whole development. You're only talking about one stand. So I'm okay with that. So I'd like to formally go with the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chamdow. Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to comment on how much I like this actually. Having played on my fair share of Sunday League pitches, they've been waterlogged, they've been bouncier than a basketball pitch in the summer, so this is a really good idea because it's needed, especially with the maintenance needed to maintain grass pitches. I really like it. Just wanted to confirm the stand is a like-for-like replacement in terms of capacity. Yeah, that's brilliant. And I'm happy to second the proposals.
Councillor Davis, and then I'll come to Councillor Gaelic.
I was only going to formally second. I think it's a great project. It's great for the local community. And it's been needed for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Gaelic?
Thank you, Chair.
Your microphone.
I wanted to ask, is there anywhere in those documents we are presented here, actually the details of 3G turf, what's the chemical components? Because I know that there was quite a lot of research recently about the links with cancer because that's produced from the crumb rubbers, hazardous materials. Is there any literature what we can read about the chemical composition of
So
that?
the chemical composition of the turf that's been put down?
Yeah, I don't believe that would be a material consideration as part of this planning application. One thing I can say is that there has been a very detailed contaminated land assessment undertaken. We are aware of there is some contamination within this particular area. Very detailed assessment's been undertaken by the contaminated land officer. If there was anything in that document that had any information regarding the actual material being contaminated itself, then that would have been raised by the contamination officer, but I don't believe that would be a material consideration for this application.
Yes, Ed, come in.
If I could just add, Sport England have been consulted the proposals. They are the experts on pitches and they've raised no objections.
Yeah, please do.
Question. They might be experts, but there was an interview with FIFA president who was in favour of natural stuff, turfs, grass turfs, opposed to these artificial turfs which have to be sprayed with chemicals to stop weeds growing, to stop fires, fire retardants or whatever, which those chemicals are released into the air. So actually there was a committee in Parliament presenting evidence that there might be some dangers, especially when the kids are playing on those fields.
Thank you, Councillor Gaelic. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, sorry. I may have misunderstood the question. Yeah. So in terms of the actual material makeup that goes underneath the actual pitch itself, that would have been included within the contamination report. So we would have had sight of that. The council's contaminated land officer has raised no objection to the application. It's been robustly reviewed, and if required, we would have had some form of condition requiring additional information, but that isn't present within this application, so I don't believe it to be a reason that we need condition.
Any further question for you, Councillor Gaelic? No. If you could just turn your microphone off. Councillor Chamdow, do I recall you signalling?
Sorry, I was just going to say what a lovely application that was, because it's, you know, it's detailed, everything was there. That's why it didn't take us an hour to discuss it like the other ones.
Thank you very much. So I believe we are proposed and seconded. No further questions from councillors. So can I ask for a show of hands to approve the Uxbridge Football Club agenda item 8? And those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. So that's 5 for and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 9, which is the Squirrels Trading Estate, Vivash Close in Hayes, the last agenda item of the evening. And Chris, this is your one again.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chairman. As with Uxbridge Football Club, I would just like to draw members' attention to the addendum. There are 2 short amendments. The first is a slight amendment to the wording of head of term 11, which allows for the submission of a revised energy strategy and for that to be reviewed by the council's energy officer in order to provide a better or an improved on-site energy saving and a reduction in the off-site contribution. And then the second amendment is just an update to page 167 and the figure which is in the highways contribution. And it also sets out exactly what that highways contribution is sought for. Thank you. So item 9 relates to the redevelopment of the Squirrels Trading site on Vivash Close, Hayes. In terms of the description of the development, it reads as the redevelopment of the site to erect a Part 11, Part 10 storey mixed-use building comprising of 121 residential units, use class C3, and a ground-level commercial premises, use class E, along with public realm delivery of a green superhighway with associated landscaping, access, parking, and following the demolition of the existing buildings. The site lies approximately a third of the way along Nestles Avenue, close to the Hayes Town Centre and Hayes and Harlington Railway Station. It is part of a larger industrial zone located to the south of the railway line and Grand Union Canal, bordered by Nestles Avenue. Further south of the Nestles Avenue lies mainly two-storey suburban housing. The site is bordered to the east by the former Neste factory site, which is currently under development for a mixed-use scheme comprising of 1,300 homes and substantial industrial and distribution space. The former factory site includes a number of locally listed buildings and structures. Currently, 2 blocks adjacent to the site are under construction. The site forms part of Site B within the Site Allocation 5 of the Local Plan Part 2 Site Allocations Policies. Here you'll see the site just in red. The existing buildings which are to be demolished are shown as 1 to 3 and 4 to 7. Here we've got a bird's eye view plan. You can see the existing buildings as they are laid out at the moment. Here you have a photo. So you've got one existing building down here and another existing building here. What you can't really see too well in this photo is that there is a fence which runs along the back of these buildings, and that creates a boundary between the Barratt development to the north, which is part of Site C, and this site, which is Site B. I'll explain a bit more about head of term later in the presentation, which will feature the removal of that boundary fence to open up the link between the two sites. Here's just another view of one of the buildings on the site. This is a view looking north. The train station is along here, if you can see my cursor here. And this is just a view looking south. So very much at the moment, Viviash Close as Site B is very much either under construction or being prepared for construction. There are two sites which are yet to come forward for development. One of them is number 4, which is directly adjacent to this particular site, and then the other one is number 7. So where those properties are located are here. Here is number 4. Committee members may recall an application for the redevelopment of number 3 Viviash Close coming to this committee twice, once in December and once a couple of months ago. That was subsequently approved by committee members and is awaiting stage 2 referral to the mayor. Here you have the application building. What you probably can't see too well is that the site edge is actually in red along here, so I'll just move my cursor along here. And then you've got number 7, which is yet to come forward for development as well. Number 9, which has been approved already, which is Stanford House. That's for a similar development for residential purposes. That's been through the stage 2 GLA referral, and conditions are being discharged on that site at present. I think the next key thing is really just to take you through some of the more master plans. These are really key to the assessment of the application. This master plan that you have in front of you shows the entire of Site B in red, or in pink, it does appear on there. You've got the site before you today, Squirrels Trading, marked within the red boundary. What you can see is the green superhighway, which runs from the left of my screen here all the way through to Wallace Gardens, okay, which is part of the former Neste's factory development. And Wallace Gardens is actually open for residents at the moment. Part of the master plan and also the site allocation policy did envisage the delivery of a green superhighway through the central spine of the site, which would link residential properties and the development from Site C all the way through to Site A, up to the Hayes and Harlington train station and to the town centre just beyond it. What you see in this top plan here is actually the green superhighway as it's envisaged, and with the existing buildings within that context. So what you will see here is Viviash Close is a separation between the development from the east to the west. At the moment, unless this site comes forward, the green superhighway will not be fulfilled. So if their building remains within that location there, the green superhighway will be obstructed. And what you see down here is the green superhighway with the actual proposed development within its context. So what you should note is that the development as proposed delivers a significant piece of the master plan, a significant piece of the green superhighway, and also in and around 60% of its site area as public open space. So that means that the actual building only occupies 40% of the site area. What you have here is a ground floor plan. To the front of the site here is where the public open space goes. I know that doesn't show the green superhighway in its full-fledged, but just to the left here, what you have is Viviash Close. You've then got a landscaping scheme, where I referred to earlier about the fence line, which creates a boundary at the moment between the Barrett site and Site B, so Site C and Site B, it is located here. So there is a head of term in place within the planning obligations to be secured by Section 106, which would see the removal of that fence, effectively then linking Site B and Site C along with Site A, which you'll need to cross Viviash Close for. We have a proposed first floor plan, second to fourth floor plan. This is the 5th to 9th floor plan, 10th floor plan. So similar to the ground floor layout, there is public open space. What you will find here is the private amenity space, which is being delivered outside of the balconies. Roof plan showing just some PV panels, some plant. These are some Core A plans, so effectively they're showing how the floor plans would be made up. Core A 2nd to 9th floor, Core A 10th floor, and then what you have is the same for Core B. Here we have the north elevation. So the application's been through quite a rigorous design process. There's been various iterations. Members will note that there is a condition attached or proposed to be attached to the application for a revised facade treatment. What we want to see come forward is some details of where the proposed block signage would be located, how that would look, how it would integrate with the front facade. Here we have the southwest elevation, northwest and southeast, section plan again with its context to the neighbouring buildings. One thing I think that is quite key is that this development does not exceed the height of neighbouring buildings. In terms of scale, it's very similar in terms of its storey heights to 3 Viviash Close, which again was a part 10, part 11 storey building. Here you've got the general arrangement plan for the podium level 10 amenity space. One particularly challenging part of this site is trying to achieve a public open space which also allows emergency vehicle access as well as parking, servicing. Given the constraints of the site, what we didn't want to do was destroy the public open space, which really is the key benefit of this particular scheme. So how we've designed, or how the applicant has designed this particular scheme, is that they will come in, go across the shared surface, be able to reverse in and then pull back out. Here are just some window elevations which just show the window proportions blown up. A CGI looking at the corner of the building along the Green Superhighway and within the context of adjacent developments. CGI number 2, again, you've got Green Superhighway just beneath here. CGI number 3, CGI number 4. Okay. As indicated in the description of development, the proposal would deliver 121 residential units, a commercial unit at ground floor level, and a significant piece of public open space. The proposed Part 10, Part 11 storey building blocks are viewed within the context of an urban and suburban area, which comprises of a mix of characteristics including buildings of a similar bulk, scale and massing. As such, the design, scale, bulk and massing is considered to be acceptable. The LPA and the applicant have worked proactively to achieve an on-site affordable housing contribution of 22.75% by habitable room with a 50-50 10-year split. This comprises of 15 social rented units and 14 shared ownership units. Whilst this is strictly not policy compliant, the development plan allows for a lower than policy compliant level of affordable to be secured, providing the offer is supported by a robustly tested FEA. The submitted FEA has been reviewed by the Council's appointed viability consultant, who has confirmed that the offer is the maximum reasonable which could be achieved. The affordable offer will be secured via a legal agreement, and this will be accompanied by an early and late stage review mechanism to capture any surplus which might be identified post-permission. The proposal offers a unit mix which is appropriate for an urban development site such as this, and given the constraints of the site, which include the delivery of the Green Superhighway. Furthermore, the proposal would provide policy-compliant levels of living accommodation in accordance with the development plan standards. With regards to highway impacts, the development would be car-free, apart from the provision of 4 disabled accessible spaces, which complies with the initial 3% requirement set out within the London plan. The proposal would deliver 218 cycle spaces for the 121 residential units. Whilst the proposal does not provide the additional 7% required to satisfy the London plan policy, this requirement should be viewed within the context of other material considerations and the benefits of the scheme. The scheme would deliver a high quality piece of public realm which would improve permeability through sites A to C, the site allocation for both pedestrians and the cyclists. The applicant has agreed to financial contributions towards highway safety and public realm improvements along Viviash Close, which will improve pedestrian and cyclist safety. Furthermore, as part of the Free Viviash Close application, it was highlighted that other sites which will come forward, such as 4 and 7 Viviash Close, would be able to deliver policy-compliant levels of accessible parking, given that they are not heavily constrained in the way the application site is. Moreover, it would be possible to deliver an additional 7% accessible spaces on this site, but this would be to the detriment of the public realm, the delivery of the Green Superhighway, and in fact the master plan. Officers consider that on balance the benefits of the scheme would outweigh the potential harm in respect of the accessible standards. In terms of other living standards, the proposal would deliver 606 square metres of amenity space via balconies and a 10th floor rooftop amenity space. In addition, the scheme would deliver approximately 1,834 square metres of open space in the form of the Green Superhighway, equating to approximately 60% of the site. Whilst the on-site provision of amenity space is not policy compliant, the applicant has agreed to a financial contribution of approximately £115,000 towards Cranford Park improvements. Taking into consideration the significant benefits of delivering a key piece of public open space and the financial contribution, the proposal is considered to be acceptable on balance. With regards to the development's impact upon adjacent developments, either consented, under construction or yet to come forward, the applicant has submitted a daylight and sunlight assessment which assesses the potential impact upon neighbouring sites. As with the schemes as with the schemes at 3 Viviash and Stamford House, the scheme would not be fully compliant. However, this is expected for a dense urban site which is subject to a site allocation and or master plan. The level of impact is not considered to justify a reason for refusal or one which would withstand an appeal. It is noted that the application has drawn an objection during the neighbour consultation process which raised concerns regarding the agent of change principle. It is noted that the nearest commercial units to the site are at the neighbouring site, 4 Viviash Close. The applicant has submitted a noise impact assessment demonstrating that, to the satisfaction of the council's noise specialist, that the proposal will provide an adequate living environment. Furthermore, the site forms part of a site allocation for residential development. Therefore, there is an acceptable assumption that neighbouring sites will come forward for redevelopment at some point in time, making any noise from the industrial units temporary. In summary, the application brings forward the redevelopment of a highly constrained and challenging site within the site allocation. The proposal would provide a key piece of public realm and open space to deliver the principles of the master plan, which would also increase permeability and pedestrian and cyclist accessibility through the Nestlé site up to the Hazen and Harlington station and the wider town centre. The applicant has agreed to a suite of contributions which include a robustly tested on-site affordable housing offer, highway improvements, enhancements to Crampford Park, carbon offset, health and air quality, and construction and employment training. As such, the benefits of the proposal are considered to outweigh the potential shortfalls. For this reason, and those set out within the committee report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think we can go straight into the debate. Councillor Davis is going to kick us off.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is on the 22.75% affordable housing. Is that really accurate? We've got 121 residential dwellings and we can only achieve 22.75%. And out of that 22.75%, there is only 2 3-bedroom properties. Surely within Hillingdon, our target should be to achieve more 3-bedroom properties.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to consider. So if you look at the benchmark, which was 3 Viviash, for example, 3 Viviash is delivering 35% at 70-30 policy compliant tenure mix. That isn't policy compliant. So that would be the benchmark. What you then need to consider is 3 Viviash providing more than 60% of the site area as open space? So effectively, the developer is saying, we're going to deliver a public open space. We're going to pay for that, and from reviewing the FEA, the cost of delivering that space is about £500,000. So if you compare the two schemes together, what we would get is, yes, we could allow for a greater provision of affordable housing, but that would be to the detriment of the green superhighway, the public open space, because we would have to allow the applicant to build further into that space. So it's been robustly tested by Avison Young, and if we compare 3 Viviash and Squirrels Trading to some of the other historic applications, for example, number 9 Stamford House, that application was approved by a planning committee with a 7 or 9% affordable housing offer. We actually ended up achieving 26% at GLA Stage 2 referral. So it's very comparable to the 9 Stamford House scheme.
Okay. It still doesn't sit right with me, considering we're crying out for 3-bedroom houses, and at the moment we're supplying 6 1-bedroom properties. It's not helping families within Hillingdon. But I'll leave that here. I'll trust your judgment that you guys are the experts on that. If I have a second question as well. This one is to Alan. Parking restrictions. Are we going to be implementing permanent parking restrictions on Viviash Close? Because I understand that is also the main route to the station parking. I may be wrong. Is that not the link road to train station parking? Yeah. Okay.
As part of the Free Viviash scheme, we did secure funding to create a parking management scheme alongside along the entire length of Viviash Close. So that was part of that application. We won't be seeking a contribution towards that on this application.
And is that, sorry, if I may, is that with immediate effect? So is that from the date that they start the development?
That would be something for you to answer, Adam, probably. So when does it come into effect?
Yeah, when does it come into effect?
That would come into effect when number 3 is built out?
Yeah.
So only after it's built?
That's correct.
Okay.
And as part of number 3 Viviash, there's a good contribution towards rebuilding effectively Viviash Close with new footways and resurfacing, including new curbstones. And you're quite correct that Viviash Close does provide access to Hayes and Harlington Station car park, which would be maintained.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Chairman.
Councillor Chamdale is next.
Thank you, Chairman. It's great to have development taking place in this area. It is a unique area. It's good to see that all the units are compliant with policy in terms of gross internal area. But when we go through these applications, we see what reasons we could possibly have for objection and refusing them, and we have to come up with the appropriate reasons if they're not policy compliant. So from what I hear, we're not policy compliant on affordable housing, we're not policy compliant on amenity space, we're not policy compliant on daylight with the balconies, if I read that correctly, especially the amenity space, because Councillor Davies has mentioned the affordable housing, which is yeah, that's a bone of contention. But even with the cunning plans, because cunning plan you said, or was it a super plan? Was it? I kept thinking of Blackadder. You have a cunning plan.
The Green Superhighway.
That's it. That's the one. Even with that, my maths is correct. If the officer will correct me, it's still 2470 compared to 2775, which is what is required. If officers could some clarification on those points, please.
Chris.
Yep. I think the report sets out quite clearly that there is a shortfall in private amenity space, which I think is what Council is referring to. And I think the answer to that would be that if you again look at the Free Viviash scheme, that was not policy compliant, and that delivered very little public open space. So there is a balance to be struck. We could achieve greater amenity space in terms of private amenity space, but again that would then require further built form out into the public open space. So where Free Viviash delivered more private amenity space, it barely delivered any public open space whatsoever. What you have here, and in my time as working for the local authority, I haven't seen an applicant come forward with a scheme where there is such a vast amount of public open space to be provided. There is an offer of affordable housing, which we did work very, very hard to try and achieve. There was various iterations of the financial viability assessment. We're not hiding the fact that it's not policy compliant in terms of amenity space, but what we're saying is there does need to be a trade-off between private amenity space, the delivery of the public realm, and public open space, which could also be used to offset the shortfall in amenity space. The applicant, whilst delivering that public open space, is also providing a contribution towards public open space in Cranford Park. So that certainly, I think, actually goes above and beyond what was achieved on both 9 Nicholas Avenue, Stamford House, and also Free Viviash. Thank you, Chairman.
Did you want to come back on that?
Sorry, any comments on the daylight?
Yeah, again, so I don't mean to keep drawing comparisons to Free Viviash, but it's probably the most relevant scheme because it's the one that I've worked on most recently on Site B. There are a familiar amount of failures, and when we looked at the daylight and sunlight report, what we look at is something called an alternative scenario. So effectively what you look at is how many failures do you have in terms of percentage in comparison to if you took the balconies away from those units. There isn't a great deal of difference between the two, so effectively it does fail. There isn't a significant number of failures, but that is to be expected within a dense urban development, and that would be common across any master plan sites across the whole of Hillingdon and wider London. So you wouldn't expect applications to comply when they're this dense.
Thank you. Councillor Cawthorne and then Councillor Gill.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions for me, for a comment more generally. On page 166, there are some quite challenging comments for TfL in regarding the proposal and lack of improvements to Viviash Close. I didn't quite take from the report that those in fact have been resolved, so that's one question, whether or not we've come to a landing that's satisfactory to TfL on that. And parking. I mean, none of these residents are going to have cars. I mean, it's part. I'm being a bit cynical. Forgive me at this hour of night, but okay. Clearly, some of these people will have cars, but I'm just curious about how this parking permit restriction will work in this context, really. So, can I put that as a second question, please?
You can indeed, Councillor Cawthorne. I think TfL concerns that there was a contribution for this. No. Chris.
Yeah. So there is a contribution towards Healthy Streets, which I believe is the Ballsbridge project, and that contribution amounts to £77,403. There is a contribution towards improvement works to Viviash Close that was secured. There was quite a vast amount of money, I believe, up to nearly 200k secured on Viviash Close. There is a contribution of around £96,000, which would also seek to pay for improvement works to Viviash Close as part of these heads of terms as well. So that's almost £300,000 delivered for improvement works along Viviash Close. In terms of just the parking point, it's a difficult one because the policy is the policy. The policy says that you should provide 3% from the outset, which is provided, that's the 4 spaces. You should then provide another 7% upon demand. One thing we don't have at the moment is any data to demonstrate how much of that demand is actually out there. So are there comparable schemes which say actually you only need 5% additional demand? So we don't have that data to work from at the moment. But what we can say is that this scheme could deliver more than the 3%, so it could deliver policy compliant levels, but that then would then be to the detriment of the Squirrels trading estate delivering the Green Superhighway, and we have balanced the permeability, the improvements to cyclist and pedestrian movement throughout the entire site allocation against the need to provide that additional 7%. In addition to that, the other sites are going to be less challenging, they're less constrained, there is the pretense that they will come forward with policy compliant levels of disabled accessible spaces. What we can't ask those to do is to compensate for the lack of provision on this site. So there is a wider master plan which was approved as a day 3 scenario as part of the Free Viviash application, which did show where those spaces would go. It's difficult, I know you probably won't see them, but there is a provision for some to be located within these areas here. So I know that's difficult to see. I do wish I'd brought the master plan and put that up on the board, but it isn't an approved document, so we can't approve something which is outside of the realms of the application red line boundary. So, yep.
Did you want to come back?
Didn't want to come back on that, but I do have another question, but I'll give way to others first, if you prefer, Chairman.
Giving way? How polite.
Giving way, I was going to say, you think I was somewhere else, wouldn't you?
We will allow you to give way to go to Councillor Gill, and then we will come back.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments with the affordable housing. I share Councillor Davis' view there. I mean, 2 3-bedroom flats for affordable housing is it doesn't sit well with me, because I think there's more families that need 2 or 3 bedders as opposed to the 1-bedders. That's something that doesn't sit really well with me. And the second one was with parking. just around the area, on the opposite side, there's a road called Cranford Drive and North Hyde Road. There's been a spike in parking issues around that area based on casework I've picked up. So I share the cynicism shared by Councillor Cawthorne in terms of these residents not coming with cars. And I feel there will be a spike in parking issues and all sorts going on the other side of the road. So that's something that might be a future problem that we haven't catered for at the moment.
Please do, Mandy.
I would just say, Councillor Gill, so lots of the developments in this area are funding, as they come on stream, a car park management review. So that is a review of the current parking management scheme that exists. So lots of the roads already are managed through the parking management scheme, so they have permit bays, etc. And I'm not sure when it will happen, but when more of the developments come on stream, there will be a review of the whole area, and I guess that's the time for which we would consult yourselves and also local residents about imposing further restrictions to remove problems that might be arising on surrounding roads. I don't know whether Alan knows if that's something that's happening soon.
Thank you, Chairman. There's no date fixed for that review, but I would highlight the site's situation. It's got a PTAL ranking of 4. It's within convenient walking distance of the Elizabeth line, shops, services and facilities in Hayes Town Centre. And then further to that, the applicants have undertaken an active travel zone assessment, and that's involved them identifying all the barriers to active travel, also travel by public transport. And we've taken a contribution from the developer to provide access to alternative means of transport in lieu of them owning a car, in lieu of them having access to a car parking space. And the council always responds to representations from local ward members, petitions from residents for the provision of parking management schemes, and in this situation there is funding to carry out those reviews. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Did you have a supplementary? Giving way again, I will note you down. I'm not going to give way. There was just a couple of things I wanted to say. I really like this, and I noticed in the report that out of 834 properties who were consulted, there was one objection, which is minimal. There is, I think the term used is suite of enhancements. There's an awful lot of financial contributions in this for various things, and I really like the green superhighway. I don't underestimate the amount of officers' time and time on the applicant's part as well, trying to coordinate this master plan across the Hayes regeneration. It is an area that is changing, and I really like the fact that 60% of the site is dedicated to public open space. We'll come back to Councillor Cawthorne next. You gave way. You were the first to give way.
All this deference in one evening, Chairman. Goodness. It's the old chestnut that I have brought up in the past, and that's around facilities for recycling, including food waste recycling. Just wonder how that works in the context of this development. And while I'm talking, I'll just make just a sort of final comment on this. I mean, I share your view about the benefits here, but and much as I enjoy my work on this committee, it's a real frustration sometimes that things are often presented to us with policy conflicts, but it seems to me that if a developer can write a cheque that's big enough, then we're expected to put that into the mix and take account of it in our assessment of the overall planning balance, and it is a frustration. I do note that officers are recommending, on balance, mind, only on balance, that we approve this, which suggests to me there's a respectable argument for doing the opposite. I'm not saying I'm voting that way, but I will see which way colleagues want to go, but let's just leave that for now, but I would like an answer to that first question, please.
Thank you. Councillor Cawthorne. Chris?
Yeah, I think Councillor Cawthorne's question is answered in condition 18. There is a waste management plan condition which does cover refuse and recycling, so we would expect the applicant to be working with the council's waste management services to provide us with an adequate level of detail that we would then approve.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Food waste in flats is next on the agenda. The press release this week from the council that it is moving forward. Councillor Chamdow, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. On the parking, I think we've been through a few developments where we've conditioned that no parking is allowed in any future PMS on the streets. If we can have that as a condition, I think that will sort of certainly alleviate the fears Councillor Gill was just mentioning, and I think it's a valid claim. And I concur with Councillor Cawthorne. He's put it much more eloquently than I could. Regards these non-compliance and how officers then present it to us to say, you know, it's okay now. So with that, I think with what the officers are saying, with the the master plan. I keep saying cunning plan. I don't know why. It's Blackadder, isn't it? I would, with the additional conditions that we've mentioned, I would like to go with the officer's recommendation then.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chamdow. Ed, you were going to come back on one of his questions.
Yeah, just quickly, I would point out that the restriction on future residents obtaining a street parking permit, that's covered by the heads of term number 7 in the proposed section 106.
Chris, anything you wanted to add at all?
No, nothing for me.
We are moved, but Councillor Davis and Councillor Gill, you gave way. Councillor Davis?
Thank you, Chairman. It still doesn't sit right with me about the houses, the social housing element, and I'd love to see if there was some sort of shuffle that we could do. Lose a couple of the single rooms and go for a couple of additional 3-bed properties. I don't know if that is something that we can do.
Councillor Davis seeking a shuffle. They're fighting over this one. Good at 9:25. Chris?
I think, yeah, look, we could ask the applicant to look at a reshuffle. That could have other effects. So, for example, if you started to move some of the units around in order to create more 3-beds, if it reduced the number of units, you'd get a reduced number of affordable housing. If that happened, would we then have an issue where we were prepared to refuse the application based on that? We'd then lose the Green Superhighway. Also, you'd have impacts upon, further impacts upon daylight and sunlight. There's nothing to say that within the area in which we've actually allocated them to be able to build within, because we want to see that Green Superhighway come forward, that they would be able to provide adequate outlook, daylight, sunlight for any additional 3-bed units. We have literally tried as much as we can with the applicant to get to a point where we can satisfy as many of the material considerations as possible. This has been through GLA review. Personally, I don't believe we would have a robust case if we were to refuse the application based on the lack of provision of 3-bed units, and certainly we wouldn't have a robust case to refuse the application based on the lack of affordable housing, because the applicant has demonstrated that the maximum reasonable has been provided. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, there is a proposed early stage review for the affordable housing, so that'll be an opportunity to review the scheme again, and if there's an opportunity to secure more family units, we would do.
If I may, Chairman, I'd feel much more comfortable with that, because as you can see today, our hands seem to be pretty tied with this, and we're here to do what's right for the residents, and at the moment it doesn't feel quite right at the moment, but I understand if this was to go to appeal, we'd lose all the conditions and the protection we put in place for the residents, or we could lose that. So with that in mind, I'd be mindful to second officers' recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. We are moved and seconded. Councillor Gill?
Thank you, Chair. Anything to bring forward affordable housing, I'm in favour of. And also what Councillor Chamdow suggested with the PMS, definitely that's something I'll be in favour of, just to make sure parking is not an issue around that area. Because just based on experience, a lot of people come from outer areas will park for the station. So you've got that additional parking, and then all the new developments being built could add to that problem. So there's anything to resolve those issues, I'm definitely in favour of.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. So a couple of potential amendments: affordable housing and parking. How are we going to structure these in terms before we go to the vote?
So what I would say is that the parking is already secured. That's proposed in Section 106. There is an early and late stage review also proposed to be secured. We could add a note to that to try and secure more 3-bed housing.
Thank you very much, Ed. So, we are proposed and seconded. We've had a good debate. We are 2.5 hours into this meeting now as well. I'm going to go to the vote, so could I have a show of hands for approving as amended? That is unanimous. Agenda item 9, Squirrels Trading Estate, is approved. Thank you very much, everybody. Councillors, officers, a very long meeting. Thank you to those of you in the gallery and those of you watching at home. We close this meeting at, I think, 9:30.